Hey everyone, it's Soraya from The Purposeful Professional. Yes, we are back. We're back. And we're in session for season 2. In our first season, we found ourselves, right? We interviewed so many guests, and I also learned a lot about myself as an interviewer, as a podcaster, and a purposeful professional. And I'm super excited to announce that yes, we are back. And this time we'll be releasing weekly episodes. So please follow, stay tuned, and continue to support the podcast. For this episode, I was blessed to be joined by Drea DeMarchi. Drea is a New Jersey native and the founder and CEO of In Creative Co., a mission-driven marketing and branding company. Listen up for this episode as we discuss everything from the power of celebrity brands and the girl economy. Yes, we are discussing Beyonce and Taylor Swift, into what it truly means to be pursuing a life of purposeful work, including the sacrifices that are made to get there. I hope you enjoy this transformative and engaging conversation on how our mission can intersect with the world of marketing and branding. Please stay tuned, listen up, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody, and this is Soraya with The Purposeful Professional. Super excited to be interviewing another very, very outstanding professional. Today, I have Drea DeMarchi, the founder of In Creative Co. She is a master brander and marketer. So we're going to get into some really great topics, not only just revolving her career, but also the importance of personal branding, marketing, and how you can turn your interest, whatever that is, into a branding and marketing powerhouse. Today, I want to start with a Pop Purpose segment. We have a new opening segment called Pop Purpose, and we want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the girl economy in 2023. I'm sure you know the success of the Barbie movie, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, as well as what's been going on with Beyonce's Renaissance. The purchasing power of women is higher than it's ever been. Drea, why don't you introduce yourself to the podcast listeners, and then we'll go into a couple of our questions around today's pop culture topic on the girl economy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. It's wonderful to speak to you. So excited to be here. I'm Drea DeMarchi. I'm founder of In Creative Co. And we are a branding and brand management agency that's powered by the Co Creative Collective.
Yeah, cool. I feel like everything you do is so dope. Like you're at the intersection of marketing, branding, sustainability. I really think you built a great company. So congratulations on that. And yes, we need your marketing expertise to break down what's been happening with Barbie, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift. The article that we read, or that I'm referencing, is an NPR article called The Girl Economy in 2023. And it discussed the rise of women's purchasing power and the support of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour and Beyonce's Renaissance Tour. The article also discusses the Barbie movie and its impact from a marketing standpoint. So I really want your expertise and your help in helping us to kind of break down what's happening in the culture, right? So let's talk about their collective impact and what it might mean for women, marketing, and beyond. So my first question for you is, did you attend the Eras Tour or Beyonce's Renaissance? If you did, or if you didn't, what do you think made these experiences so engaging and empowering for women?
I love that question. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend either. The prices for those tickets are way out of my league. They are very competitive. Anyone that was able to go, it's a huge blessing. And I think overall, as I read through the article and what I experienced firsthand from people who were going, is it truly showed the passion that women have, and that passion is what people saw the result of with those economic rises, which when women are passionate about something, they really double down. And when they double down, they go all in. And so that's what we saw firsthand, was that women's passions drove us to go all into making the Taylor Swift's candy or friendship bracelets. And then the other aspect of Beyonce having the call to action, I want us to be a disco ball. I want us to be dressed in silver and sequins. And then again, doubled down and really showed up and showed out. And that's what women do. Women are extremely passionate. And so that's what I saw firsthand. And that's the key, is to tap into women's passions.
Yeah. Woo, I love how you said that. First and foremost, I can relate. The prices were not entrepreneur friendly.
unless you are like like a Bill Gates entrepreneur or a Jeff Bezos or Sarah Blakely entrepreneur, the prices were not really in many of our pay grades. But I do think I love the fact that you talked about the passion and the fact that passion is really what makes these women stand out. And they translated that passion to their fan base. They translated that passion to those that support them. I'm sure you heard about Beyonce's mute challenge and like, you better not speak when Beyonce says everybody on mute. And then Taylor Swift and people, trading friendship bracelets all the way from outside of the stadium. Like, I think you're right. Like, they translated that passion and that vision into their community, and the community spoke back to them. So I want to hear about that from a marketing or branding standpoint. What do you think activated women to support these tours in record numbers?
So they have a very strong fan base already before the tours. So they had an existing audience that were already considered brand loyalists, and they created a theme. And that's what they tapped into, was having the audience unite as a whole amongst a theme. So the theme of the friendship bracelets and like really dressing up for the whole Taylor Swift experience and making it an experience. And with that price point of that ticket, it has to be an experience for someone to justify it. Even if you love what it could be, you have to sell why it has that price tag. So they made it into a full-on experience. The Beyonce audience also had a full-on experience. And so they tapped into their brand loyalists, promised them an experience, and then showcased what that experience could be through a lot of targeted messages directly from the artists themselves. So they really pulled their audience in and had like Beyonce with the call to action, let's make this a disco ball. Let's make this into something that you've never seen before and will never see again. So the fact that they heard it directly from the all-star, the artists themselves, the brand loyalists, of course, were like, we have to do this. This is what they want. This is who we're going to see. So it had very strong messaging, and they gave the experience that they promised, and they created a community, like the community that was already there. They united that community, and that unification is necessary so that people feel like they're a part of something. And that's really the core of it. They want to feel like they're in with their people. They found their people. And that's spoken even without the tours. Like, the tours are over there. Well, the Taylor Swift still has the international segment, but beyond the tours, you could see it in comments that aren't even in relevant to Taylor Swift stuff. Like, I all of a sudden see a comment like "Swifties unite," that these are my people, like just randomly. So they've really created a strong community for both of the artists, and then they pulled them in to have this experience with them, and it really amplified that message when the artists themselves spoke that and said, I'm here with you doing this too. Like, we're all here together, and that they were a part of it as well. And that, I think, is why it was so successful, because they tapped into women's passions with all those key factors.
Yeah. Woo, you're saying a lot, and I want to tap into your marketing mind. So you gave us a couple of words, a couple of keywords, one of them being brand loyalist, right? Like, these women have loyal fans. They actually have a brand that has sustained the test of time. You talked about Swifties Unite. Beyonce has the Beehive. She has the Hive, and she's the queen of the Hive. So all of these things are very, very strategic on their end, but also very brilliant. You also talked about price points, right? And I think that's also something important to highlight for the podcast. The price point has to lead to an experience. And I'm sure when we get into your story and you launch an In Creative Co., a huge part of marketing is about creating experiences. I think we think of marketing as like Don Draper, Mad Men, just selling something or advertising. But no, it's an experience. Like, today, it's social media and people tweeting, trending, TikToking. Like, it's a whole omni-channel experience, literally. So I love how you gave us just that marketing like 101 college class energy. I really do love and appreciate that. And yes, you also talked about community and the importance of fostering a community. I think like today, now more than ever, people aren't just fans of Taylor Swift. They're a Swiftie. They're a part of her family. They're a part of what she does. The community aspect is super strong and powerful as well. All right. So with the Oscar snub, last question. I want to focus on what's happened with the Barbie Oscars snub. Not necessarily the Oscar snub, but I'm sure you've seen those trending comments. The Barbie movie also unlocked women in a whole new way. I went to the movie theaters. Everybody was wearing pink. Another like everybody do this to be a part of this thing. But I want to ask you a couple questions about that and see if your marketing mind can help us to understand what was so fantastic about it. So the question is, the article also refers to the Barbie movie and the record-breaking box office run it had. One thing that stood out to me and really to all of us was how powerful the marketing was. As a marketer yourself, what do you think made Barbie's marketing so captivating?
The partnerships. They partnered with an immense amount of companies where I would never even thought Barbie would have been a part of. And so they capitalized on partnerships that it felt like Barbie was literally everywhere. It encompassed the entire globe. It was everything on both social platforms and the internet. Even Google was draped in Barbie pink. It felt like we were engulfed into the Barbie world, not forever, but for a short amount of time. And that messaging was extremely loud. You couldn't escape it. Even if you weren't into seeing the movie, it was still everywhere. And that, I think, is why it was such a force.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, code words, you're giving us a lot of things to think about. Messaging, that's huge, but also partnerships. Like, are there any brands that partnering with them can bolster your presence, can bolster what you're doing? I think that's super effective. All right, so I want to get into your background and I want to get into your story as well. Thank you for such a great pop purpose segment. You really brought all your A game to that. I think we're learning a lot about marketing. Hopefully, y'all were taking notes. So I want to know, one of the things that we do at the Purposeful Professional is we like to say we're the podcast for the people, your career, and then also the culture, right? So we like to talk about who you are as a person, your career, but also the cultural influences that you are engulfed in. So I want to start with you as a person. Can you tell me, like, who was Andrea or Drea as a child? Like, what did you envision your first career path being or career being, and why?
So I was born old. I definitely was more of a boring kid looking back. And so my favorite thing to do was reading. And I absolutely loved reading. If you asked me what I loved doing, what was my favorite thing, it would absolutely be reading, which you'd probably catch me actually reading a book. And with that, I knew I loved the written word. I loved storytelling. I loved having characters go through a challenge and then find a solution. I loved experiencing that along with them. And that was the essence of what I knew I loved, but then how do you develop that into an actual career? That's like the golden question because it can be extremely difficult to find exactly what path is the right path to take for a person. And so I knew I wanted to go to college, and with reading, I loved content creation, along with writing, just maker. I'm a natural maker and I have a doer's spirit. So I knew I wanted a communications degree and I picked that right away. I really declared my major the first month of college, which some people are like, "Oh, that's really soon. Are you sure?" And I knew what I wanted. So I honed in on what content creation is, and the core of content creation is storytelling. Absolutely. No matter what, you're telling a story, you're bringing people into this story, and you're all having an experience within that. So, fine tuning that. honing that craft. And then more towards the end of college, when I started to get more experience and I started to understand what crafting a story was. And I started out as a participant reading stories, but now I'm the one making the stories. And I knew that eventually I would own some sort of agency. How that would happen, I didn't know, but I verbally said it several times, and I knew that that was somehow going to be on my path.
First of all, I can relate to being born old. I think that is something that a lot of us experience. I'm also an old soul. I also grew up a bookworm. But I think one of the benefits of that is that you knew your direction really early. Like you didn't spend time wavering and being like, hey, I might want to do this or I might want to do that. Like how people like to joke that this singer SZA went to college for marine biology. Like, totally opposite of where she ended up going. Not to say that's a bad thing, but some people that's their life. But it seemed like you had that direction. You knew is what motivates me. And I'm grateful that you talked about how storytelling is at the core of marketing, storytelling, content creation. So you took that, in love with the storytelling sequence of like heroes versus villains, or, the bad guy versus the good guy, or, what happens at the end of a conflict. And oftentimes these are sequences we see that companies play out with each other. How many times do we see, a company say like, hey, we're the good guys, we're the bad guys, brands channel stories. And I think that has a lot to do with what you're doing now. So that and the communications degree, shout out to your alma mater, because obviously they prepared you super well for what you're doing, has a lot to do with where you are now and today. So I think that was a really great childhood background. And I think that's fascinating how you took your love for stories and turned that into marketing as a career. That's brilliant as well. If anyone's listening and like you're like, hey, like I'm a bookworm, try marketing. Like try taking your love for words, your love for stories, and channeling that into companies and channeling that into causes that you care about, and marketing that.
Now we've learned more about Drea's love for storytelling, reading, and characters, and how that laid the foundation for her future career as a marketer. New Jersey was the perfect backdrop, close to New York City, for her deep sense of discovery, and this cultural diversity provided her with the creative juices needed to evolve and grow. From an early age, she recognized that she had a gift for being a maker, a doer spirit, and a strong bent towards ideation. This pushed her to immediately declare her communications degree. Drea was ready. She knew who she was, what her strengths were, and what avenues were available to her. Keep listening to learn more about her interests and upbringing and how that sowed the seeds needed to become a world-class marketer. Don't forget the gems dropped about the power of passion and making it meet execution, knowing how to sell your ideas and develop passion in others to follow out and fulfill those ideas. That is the sauce of entrepreneurship. So keep listening to Drea and her story and how she went from developing this self-awareness into building her own career.
I'm wondering, like, what was the first moment that you said to yourself, being a marketer is cool. I might do that. Like, when was it like marketing for you? Because I think a lot of people who like communications and even storytelling might choose to be an author or a writer. So like, when did you know that it was marketing for you? You were like, hey, marketing is my cool thing. It's like, this is the thing that I like.
So, right from my first internships all the way through to my first job, and this has been sprinkled throughout my entire career up to today, is promotions. I got involved in promotions very early, and as this like extroverted introvert who like loved connecting with people, loved having something to invite people to, giving people a experience along with a purpose, and especially a brand that is very purposeful, I just fell into it very naturally because it tied in everything I was learning as well as what I just naturally enjoyed. So it really started with promotions and then fine tuning that, and learning and understanding how you amplify a brand, how you amplify a message, and how you really bring this all together into one cohesive business. It's simple and yet it's still complicated. So I grapple with that a lot. It's simple in some ways, but then like big picture, it can still be very complicated. So having people understand that as a business owner, I think is a part of the journey of owning a business, even having and launching a podcast. You have to still do all of these things. Really any idea. And that's another thing that I've always been is an idea maker. I'm an idea maker and I have books and books of ideas. Literally just like I wake up with ideas. I have ideas when I'm eating lunch. I have ideas in the shower. I have ideas when I go on a walk. Like the ideas are just pouring out of me. But I saw very early on that if you don't know how to sell the idea, it will go nowhere. And you really have to know how to sell it. And the selling is with the storytelling. So it all comes together, but that's really another key factor that I wanted to hone this entire craft because I want to see my ideas grow and flourish and live. I don't want them to just die in a book that I wrote at some point and then it just goes nowhere. I mean, the amount of passion projects I've worked on and everything, I mean, just with myself, it just pours out of me. And I know that it will never go anywhere until I truly learn how to sell it and then can bring other people into it in a way that they also feel passionate about it. And when you can do that, the sky's the limit and all your ideas can be brought into reality.
Okay, whoa. I feel like you went from marketing from like your expertise into the passion involved in marketing as an entrepreneur and what that looks like to be an entrepreneur and also be an effective marketer because it's very different from doing agency marketing. First and foremost, you said something that I identify with strongly. You said you're an extroverted introvert. I also identify as that, especially when you're in creative fields and you do creative things. There's this extroversion of like, hey, I like engaging with people. I like people to see my stories, see what I'm working on. I like the tangible marketing experience that they can see, feel, hear. But I also have this mastermind side where it's like, I'm the strategist, I'm the planner, I'm the one sitting up sometimes 2, 3 a.m. at night trying to put things together. And I think I see both dualities in you, which probably is what makes you such a great marketer. You can balance the extroverted side of engaging with people while also thinking about the introversion involved in, hey, what are the deeper needs that people have? You know, you're probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What are the deeper, the solitude needs that we have, the needs that other people might not see, but that we see when we're by ourselves and we're alone, you know, sitting by ourselves. So I think that's really beautiful. You also talked a lot about just being able to translate essentially the vision into action. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. I'm also an ideas person, but like you're exemplifying, to be a marketer, you have to take those ideas and translate them into action. And furthermore, like you said, build passion in other people. I always say, like, you have to arouse the emotion in others. You'll see some people, like, if you ever say, hey, get a Samsung, give me your iPhone back, they're going to start crying because to them, the iPhone is an extension of who they are. It's a way of life. It's how they live. It's what they have in their hands all day. It's that passion that keeps them going. So I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things I've had to learn is how to bring other people into what I'm doing. And like you said, storytelling and arousing that passion in other people is so great. And is such a huge high point for being able to basically get anything done. You got to sell it to others because you can't carry the burden yourself. So I love that. Is there anything you want to add to any of those thoughts? Because I think you went really deep. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of those thoughts?
So, when you have an idea and you want it to go somewhere, you have to know that there's going to be rejection. But you will be okay with the rejection if you truly believe in your idea, and that passion is going to override all of the rejection that you'll ever get. And I saw that firsthand at one of my first promotions jobs. So we were at the Hudson River Park and I helped produce these free events, literally free, 100% free for the public. Everyone's invited, hundreds of events along the west side of New York. And we would promote these events, and a part of the promotion, we had the entire event lineup on these event calendar booklets, and it literally showcased from May to October free events for New York City. You don't even have to be a New York City resident, like free for anyone. And I stood giving these out, trying to give these out, saying like free events in New York, free events in New York. Thousands of people would turn me down and not take it. And I would think to myself, I know what I'm doing is so good. This is good for the community. This is good for us as a whole. And I believed in it so much, I didn't care that people said no because that's how firmly I believed in it. And that's a key factor is when you firmly believe in what you're building, the rejection won't matter.
Wow, you're touching on something that I was just thinking about the other day. So I literally have a LinkedIn post in my drafts talking about fearlessness and rejection. And I've heard so many people say like I guess you could say their beginnings or their origins into entrepreneurship or marketing or any field where sometimes you have to take the contrary position was direct selling. Like they would literally knock on doors and they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" And they heard more no's than they heard yeses. And I think when you're really a creative, and I always say this, and when you're really a visionary, everyone's not going to understand or even identify with what you're doing. You talked about having those tickets and promotions and not realizing that that career and promotions would literally set the stage for what you're doing now, being able to hear no. Because I literally get people like asking me, how do you persist when you hear no? I always like to say, I'm the voice in the wilderness. There's a part of me that's an evangelist. I'm willing to go up for what I believe in. I'm willing to stand alone for what I believe in. And I think that promotions job was really teaching you, even when people say no, believe in what you're doing, stand tall and keep going. And these are the things that I heard you talk about New York. We're going to talk a little bit about locational and regional influences, but I'm from New York. And of course, out here, you have to be tough. There's no like whimpering. I'm also from a Caribbean immigrant family. So there was never any like, hey, give up. My mother would always say, faint heart never won, fair lady. So I would always recognize if I wanted to be anybody in today's society, I had to have that thick skin. So I'm glad you talked about rejection and how many ideas we can think die in the rejection phase. So many. And I think that when you are really a creative and you really have the talent, I need you to trust yourself. If there's anything that the listeners that y'all are going to take from this conversation, trust yourself. Trust that your ideas matter. And I love that we started off with that. So I did some background research, as I do on all my guests. And I know that you live in Jersey City. So you are from the tri-state area like myself. Or are you from there?
Yeah, so I grew up in Rutherford, New Jersey, which is a North Jersey town.
Okay. So you're from there. Tell me about your hometown, growing up in Jersey, North Jersey, and then how that might have influenced your personal growth and your professional development.
It's a great question because I lived in the shadow of New York City, and that was the biggest draw for living in the area that I do because it's a very short bus ride into Port Authority. And so I've been going into New York my entire life, and that was where I always viewed dreams were made. And that's where I always wanted to be. It's such a magical place. There's always so many fun things going on. It's a place where you could explore for hours and days and never really find, like you just can always find more. Like there's never something you can't find. And I love that energy. I loved that part of adventure. And so I lived in other places in the country, but to be honest, they always felt boring. They're good for a retreat and for solace when I'm craving that, but not for an extended amount of time. For an extended amount of time, it does get very like one dimensional. It's not very inspiring. One of the things I love about Jersey City is that it's urban. It's again right outside the New York City doorstep, so I could travel into New York whenever I like. And just walking around my block in Jersey City, there's a ton of different influences from every part of the world. The fact that we have the amount of different restaurants is absolutely insane. Like it's exploding with different cultures and people from all around the world. Jersey City is one of the most diverse cities in America, and it shows. I just found out that one of the restaurants that I absolutely love to eat at is winning or is a nominee for a James Beard Award, which is a culinary award, and they are extremely authentic Bangladesh food. So it just shows that it's that cultural diversity that I thrive from. I really can't live without it, especially being a creative and having these influences open my eyes and keep me wondering, keep me imagining, like my imagination, keep me dreaming. It's necessary, I think, for creatives to live in diverse places. And there's a few articles and research papers written on how are people so creative, and they did a study on the West Village and the reason why so much art has been sparked and birthed within the West Village of New York is because of that cultural diversity and the proximity within people's living spaces of that cultural diversity. Like you can't escape it basically. Everyone is so close together that it's just natural for people's cultures to overlap. And my family's from New Jersey. And so my grandmother grew up in Bayonne, and she said that when she lived in Bayonne, all the women would congregate together and swap recipes and cultural traditions. So we're not Polish at all. I genetically have no Polish, but because of where my grandmother lived in Bayonne, she learned how to make a lot of traditional Polish foods and even knew how to speak Polish because of where she lived. And I always thought that was so cool that you could learn so much from your neighbors and so much from your community, even if you aren't technically that culture.
I was putting out there. I'm like, I feel like she's from Jersey. Okay, so you are from Jersey. Thank you for confirming that. But I see that East Coast hustler vibe with you, and I think I'm very, very similar. I was also going to say, I was going to touch on something that you touched on, which is that I think creative people tend to congregate in these areas, these like metropolitan, really like cultural explosion areas. Because the truth is, nothing is really new under the sun. We're all recombining things that we've seen before. And sometimes when you come up with a creative idea, it'll be something like in your subconscious that you saw that you're pulling up, and then years later you're like, oh, I got it from this place or that place. So I think your cosmopolitan nature has really helped you to shine as a creative, because I think a lot of people who struggle with creating ideas. And like you said, your career, ideas are your currency, right? Selling them is how you get paid, literally, right? For people who struggle with coming up with ideas, there's this creative block, usually, and it's a locational block. It's like maybe and shout out to Arkansas, right? But maybe you're from a small town in Arkansas and you don't necessarily know what's out there, what's possible. And I think coming from a New Jersey or a New York or being close to New York really gives you that sense of understanding what is possible. It really is the city. It is the Big Apple. And if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I think like it has that spirit and that bravado that I think a lot of other cities lack. And yes, I had that conversation about like wanting to move to other places in the US. I've been to other places. It just doesn't top New York in terms of the energy, in terms of the vibe, in terms of what happens out here on the East Coast, and that the hustler mentality that we have out here to really make something out of nothing. And I think that is a huge part of your story. So getting back to your story, I would love to know, like, let's talk about if there were any people, we like to focus on the people aspects before diving into the career specifically. If there were any people that were really critical to your personal and professional development, if so, could you name one of those people and talk about the impact that they've had on you and your career?
So, absolutely, my husband Lorenzo is the reason why I can be here today and to create what I've created and continue to create. So, I knew that I had this love for content creation and back in this conversation, I spoke about how I knew I wanted to build an agency. And that was back in college. And actually, one of the times I said that, the person who I was dating at that time said, "You'll never do that. You'll never do that." And I was like, okay, well, you don't know me. But I was like, this is a terrible person to be with, one. And two, I need support. Like for me to be able to follow these dreams, build, grow, learn, I need a support system. And that was one of the things that really stuck out about Lorenzo is that whenever I had an idea, which I have a lot, granted, I do have a lot of ideas, no matter what they are, how crazy they are, how far fetched, he's always super supportive and said, if anyone can do it, it would be you. And when I first started to build in Creative Co., he was right there along with me saying, "You can do it. You can figure this out. You're going to be able to do this." And not only says it, but he also, his actions, he also creates a supportive environment where I'm able to do this. Like right now, he is caretaking our baby, our 3 month old, watching her while I talk with you today, and isn't complaining, isn't commiserating that like I'm here speaking with you and not being a mother. No, he is like 100% supportive. And that's something that is truly priceless.
Yeah, first of all, shout out to the supportive husbands. I know you hear from so many women who are like, "Where do you find a Lorenzo at?" Because it's hard. It's hard for women, and I'm sure you see the discourse on social media and TikTok. As a marketer, I know you're plugged in. A lot of powerful women feel like they can't find partners who are supportive of their dreams and of their goals. So I think that's very wonderful that you were able to find that. A bit off script, but like, what tips do you have for women who are like you, entrepreneurs with a strong vision from they were younger to do similar to what you're doing? What tips do you have for them in terms of choosing their partner and finding the support that they need to thrive?
This could be a podcast in itself. This is a whole episode in itself because I have horror stories. My one tip for women is, as soon as you see that first red flag, it just bounced. Like it cut ties. Like it's not going to work. Like you can't change someone's perception, because I do feel that it's a way that they were raised. It's something that's innately within them, and they either have it or they don't. And as soon as you feel like your partner is not supportive of you, that's a really hard thing to change. I'm not into changing people. I want to work and amplify with who the person is. And that is something that I started to get very keen on, is as soon as I felt like they were undermining me, uh, not being supportive either verbally or their actions, I was like, this is not going to be good, because it's never going to allow a mutually beneficial relationship to shine and grow and to have us both flourish, because it is a team effort. It absolutely is a team effort, and you have to be all in on them as they are with you. So it's not like it's all about me all the time. It absolutely isn't, and it shouldn't be. But you have to find someone that wants to do both, and also just truly believes in you and sees your power even when you don't see it in yourself. And that was something that I really loved too, was that he saw my potential before I saw it within myself, and was completely supportive and really gave a supportive environment. And I would have never been able to have built anything without that supportive environment, which is really why I had to wait as long as I did, because I wasn't able to do it without that support system. And in hindsight, one of the reasons why I didn't have that support system was because of not putting myself around people that was more like him, and instead being with people that were doing and saying things that were just like very undermining. So another story is I had another person I was dating say that, "Oh, well, I'll be a stay-at-home dad since you like working so much." And I was like, "That's a weird thing to say." Granted, we were literally dating like 6 months, and I'm like, this I was like, we can't, no. That obviously did not last for a reason, but it was like just those you have to be you have to listen with your ears and you have to look with your eyes like really subjectively at like who you're with, and if you're noticing that they're not really aligned with you, please just don't waste your time.
A shout out to you for that advice. Like, ladies listening, powerful people, powerful men and women listening, okay? Like the first red flag, run. Do not waste your time trying to rehabilitate people, okay, who are not aligned. I totally agree. And I think it's wonderful that you've been able to find that alignment, because I think that's what so many, especially women, are looking for. So thank you for that vote of confidence that the alignment is out there. Keep going. I try to find it because it's out there.
So now we've spoken about the influence of a supportive environment and how that can help your career. Here's some marriage advice from Drea. Choose someone that sees your greatness, even when you don't see it in yourself. Her reflections on Lorenzo and the strength of their relationship were wonderful, and it shows the power that lies in partnering with the right individuals on our purposely professional journey. In this part of the episode, listen up to hear about Drea's deep commitment to sustainability, her tips for impact brands to gain traction and eyes on their work, and even her own social entrepreneurial journey. Let's listen up and keep deepening our understanding of Drea's journey.
What made you found in Creative Co. at these intersections?
So I absolutely love amplifying messages and voices that have purpose. And the purpose that truly matters right now is creating an environment, creating an earth, creating a loving humanity. And so businesses that align with that purpose, I think, yes, I absolutely want to amplify this because that's what marketing is in essence. That's what branding is in essence. It's an amplifier. And when you know what you're doing is good work and what you're doing is going to amplify a message, I just feel personally better when it's something I can get behind and not something that I feel icky about. Because if I start feeling icky about it, that's gonna start messing with me internally. And then I feel like I'm not following my true north, I'm not following my path. And it's tough sometimes because some of the businesses that are not as purpose driven, they pay really well. There's always that aspect. So it's a balance. It's a huge balancing act on being able to pay the bills and survive, along with wanting to follow your heart and amplify things that will make the world a better place. So it's it's difficult, but it's worth it. And that's why I've chosen to do it the way that I've done. And especially when you know you do good work and you know what you do builds up a message and builds up a voice, you want it to be something that you could look back on and be proud of.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I totally can relate to that. Like, I have this social vision. I have this social vision of things that I want to do, but these clients that I may not be aligned with pay the bills. And we always hear like the Pareto principle, like 80% of the profits come from 20%, right? So who are the 20%? And I always hear people like money chasing. And I think one of the things that I really think is special about In Creative Co. when I was looking at your marketing is really how you center that. Like, we're looking for these type of people. It was very, very clear what type of ventures you want to work with. And that shout out to you for like getting that clarity, because I think a lot of agencies, a lot of consultants, a lot of like those type of businesses often just chase who's paying. And it kind of gives a vibe of like, hey, if you can afford our rates, we want you. Versus like, I actually am looking directly for this type of person because I think they align with my values. I think they align with my company's values. And it speaks to that broader purpose that you have. And I relate to you. Like, I not only do I have this podcast, but I also have a nonprofit. And I know that amplification of social issues and social causes is so important. I have so many friends in the sustainability space who are trying to do essentially what you're doing or who could need your help. and who do need your help, not could, do need your help. And people like you to amplify what they're working on, to amplify the fact that they care about, it's the triple bottom line. It's people, planet, profit. Like we care about the planet a lot now, and we care about people a lot now. And I think that that is definitely shifting and changing. So I think that the work that you're doing is so important and will be so critical to the next maybe 50 years of our experience and the next 50 years of basically consumerism. Okay. So I want to know, like, of all the companies and brands that you've worked with, like, have you had a favorite project or a most memorable job, and why?
So there's one that I'd love to give a shout out. It's a new cafe. It's a wine bar cafe in Manhattan. It's called Purple Waves. And what makes them shine and stand out amongst the crowd is that they're built on circularity principles and they genuinely want to build a business that has that in mind from the ground up. And so their circularity principles are extremely rooted in ethics and morals, and they value diversity. They showcase diversity. They also have very strong sustainability practices. They are figuring out how to do this, and it's not always the most financially stable. Like it does sometimes cost more to go the sustainable route. And the fact that they persevere and they pick sustainability over profit, I applaud them for that because that's not always what a business owner will choose. And it is a tough decision to make, and they are leading by example.
Yeah, repeat their name for the listeners just to make sure that we get it. Repeat the name again.
Purple Waves.
Okay.
Purple Waves.
Okay, Purple Waves. Okay, Purple Waves. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get that shout out for Purple Waves. We're gonna get that in the description box for you all. Yes, Purple Waves. And it's funny because you actually a little premonition to the next question, which is what is a common mistake that brands make when trying to stand for social values such as sustainability while balancing the bottom line. I want to get your feedback on this as somebody who not only is running a purpose driven agency, but also works with purpose driven brands. Like, I see so many people who want to do the impact brand, but they're struggling in it. Like, what do you think is the common mistake that they make?
I think that when you're putting in all of this time and effort, you need to communicate it clearly to your audience. When you are doing all of these sustainability efforts, diversity efforts, inclusion efforts, you need to communicate it to your audience and not just one time, not just in the footer of your website. You need to communicate it consistently and you need to shout it every chance you get because that is what's going to one bring in the audience that appreciates and wants to participate, but also it starts to pave the path and lead by example for your industry as a whole. And you've got to be that person that stands up and keeps echoing what you want to see more of. And that's what I see happen is that they are doing these efforts, but they're not necessarily bringing the audience along on that journey. They're leaving it as, a place where it's there, but it's not in the forefront and it's not really with a spotlight on it. And you've got to bring more attention to the efforts that you're doing. And even if you're technically not a sustainably driven business, just the small efforts that you are doing, talk about. And if you're struggling with a way to make your business sustainability driven and you're not sure what to do, ask, start a conversation about it. Say, I would love to do XYZ. Who could help me get there? Who has ideas? What solutions can we drum up to make this happen? And don't be afraid of what you're doing wrong. Instead, try to use it as an opportunity. So there's a thing called a SWOT analysis, and you do your strengths, very quickly. This is an overview. Want to clarify. This is going to be a clarification and an overview. So you've got strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for your business. And ideally, you want to take your weaknesses and turn them into opportunities. And you want to take any threats and try to work around and build them up into strengths. And you want to that's how you make your business stronger, is you're taking your threats and your weaknesses and you're working on them. And one of the ways to work on them is, instead of ignoring it, start a conversation, look for solutions, speak to professionals, bring it to your audience and say, I would love to do this. What do you think? And not keep it like away and hidden. And that's what I love most about what's the trend on social media of just authenticity in general. These conversations, I think businesses are getting less afraid of, and they're realizing the strength in weaknesses, and that there's a huge opportunity of being authentic and showcasing your whole self and not just the highlights and the things you're doing really well. And instead bring forward everything and saying, this is where we're at right now. What can we do to be better? And I think when you can have those honest conversations, not only do your brand followers become loyalists because that trust has risen, but you can also just genuinely strengthen your business with some really creative, great ideas. And your support system of your audience is actually there cheering you on because they want to see you do well and grow and thrive. And that's the whole key why I think authenticity is such a reason why we're actually strengthening as a community, and humanity is stronger, is we're accepting authenticity and embracing authenticity, and not just trying to like look at the best of everything and everything has to be super polished and perfect.
Yeah, wow, Drea, you're on a roll. Like, I was like, yes to everything you're saying. I was like, yes, check, 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 check. I agree. Yes, 100%. I agree with everything you're saying. And I think to piggyback on some of the stuff you're saying, I was at a social entrepreneurs convening in Colorado, and we talked a lot about how the term social entrepreneur can be limiting sometimes because we have such good intentions, we fail to, like you say, communicate the value that we provide. Social entrepreneurs need to get paid too. Absolutely. In fact, there's no entrepreneurship without that market exchange. So I think you're touching on a couple of things that are probably my favorite, like I guess you could say taglines or buzzwords in entrepreneurship. One of them being build in public. And I think a lot of us we grew up hearing, I'm gonna build this in the lab. I'm gonna be in the startup garage, and I'm just gonna hide away from people. But I think building in public is really what people want in 2024. Like, we want to see the evolution. Like you said, tapping into the audience. The audience wants to feel like they're a part of it. I realized just doing my own marketing how powerful polls are, how powerful asking people to sound off in the comments is. It builds a connection. It makes people feel like they're involved. And when you build in public, ironically, you bring people in and you give them that sense of belonging into what you're doing, because you aren't trying to be perfect. I mean, how many companies come across as so perfect and super perfect, and people just aren't attracted to them in spite of the perfection that they have? I think, like you said, we're in the age of authenticity. We're in the age of storytelling. I can't tell you how many storytelling like TikToks and YouTubes go viral because people want to hear those real life experiences. People want to feel as if they're a part of a real life experience. And when you provide that for people, that is really what creates the addictiveness to the brand. That's really what creates that brand loyalty. So I'm grateful that you touched on that, and you touched on people understanding, hey, ask for what you're worth and know what you're worth. And I think for a lot of social entrepreneurs, I'm one of them. You're a do-gooder, so you don't want to come across as like, I don't want to come across as being a capitalist. Well, we live in a capitalist society, not excusing the negativity that comes with that, but you need to pay your bills. You need to pay your team. Communicate that value and build in public so people can see that value and align with it in a very deep way. It's like a baby. Like, when you see your baby grow, you love that child because you've seen it through every single stage. And I think I'm a big proponent of building in public, because I feel like when I see a founder talk about their rejection or their failure or their failed product launch, it makes me want to support, because it's like, damn, I've been in the trenches of entrepreneurship too. How can I support you? How can we partner? How can we make this work? And I think people are attracted to that sense of raw authenticity that I think great brands and great leaders have. Okay. Thank you for that. So I want to know, like, what was the hardest part about building in Creative Co? We're talking a lot about, rejection, asking for what we're worth. We're talking about some pretty heavy things that entrepreneurs sometimes don't have the capacity to even discuss or think about. But I want to know, like, whether it's anything we talked about before or something completely new, what was the hardest part about building in Creative Co? And what tips do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs in the space that you're in?
So there's a lot of hardships. It could be really hard. I think, well, shout out to Yelbel. She was a co-founder of In Creative Co. And she was there during like the breaking ground and beginning the very first iterations of the co. And that I think was the hardest part is having her step down and look to other opportunities and taking full reins. And it's always those shifts are really big shifts. And I think that could be the hardest part is ebbing and flowing and riding the wave of entrepreneurship, and that you have to have a vision and you have to know that you're moving towards that vision. You have to hold that vision steady. You don't know though how you're going to get there. There's many paths, and those paths change and shift and they restructure, but you have to, no matter what, hold that vision steady. And so even through hardships like having a co-founder step down, you still have to hold that vision and ride that wave and know that there's still paths emerging, and to believe and trust and move down those paths, and all while holding the vision, and holding the vision with integrity, your initial integrity. And that is, I think, what every single successful entrepreneur has, is a very strong vision and the capacity to hold that vision no matter what happens.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a lot of great things. First of all, I love that you can still reference your co-founder in the meeting and say, positive things, because I think there's so many you've probably seen them, co-founder relationships that have crashed and burned. It's like, oh, where are they? They're a faint memory. So I'm glad that you and your co-founder still have that relationship, because I think founding a company is a spiritual thing. Like, it's so much is involved, and you're linked to this person for life. So I'm grateful that you shouted her out as well. Yeah, you're talking the truth. And you're talking the truth, because my podcast listeners know I'm an entrepreneur with more than one venture. And I actually, like, in 2023, towards the tail end, I went through the hardest period for my entrepreneurship that I ever went through. Like, things were just falling through left and right. And what you're saying is exactly what I needed to hear. And in fact, that's what I started posting, that your vision is not wrong. I tell founders all the time, your vision is not wrong, because people will go all over the place with market research and trying to figure out, do I have the right vision? Your vision is not wrong. It might be the implementation. And like you said, it's trusting in the vision, but opening yourself up to new avenues and new pathways. I think that's really where, like you said, an entrepreneur can shine, because you can not only remain steadfast to your vision. It's like this paradox. I like to call it the entrepreneur's paradox. You have a steadfast vision, but you're open to many different forms of implementation. And those forms of implementation changing over time. Like, we see companies today who are starting AI branches who didn't have them before, right? But they're using AI to now further what they currently did in a new and profound way. So I love the fact that you said that. And I'm just thinking, man, where was that? Like, months ago? I needed your wisdom like months ago, because I think, like, in the entrepreneurship space, it's hard to find people to be that transparent and say, hey, like, there are struggles, there are setbacks, but remain steadfast to your vision. Because oftentimes I see founders, and I've been in many accelerators and incubators, I see founders questioning their vision and wavering in their vision. And I would say, from what I know, if you're wavering in your vision, I need you to take a break, get the solidified vision, and come back. Because that's one thing I need you to be 100% sure of. So I agree. And I think that wisdom that you have and just spewed out towards me is something that the listeners will really benefit from. All right. So I'm curious. You're a personal branding guru. You dropped so many gems today on branding, marketing, not only just for the person of the person, the human, but the person behind the brands. I think you have this gift of making brands relatable to people, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. But have you ever seen yourself like taking that skill set and maybe venturing outside of the branding or marketing space? If so, what are some other endeavors you are yearning to try? I know you probably have some other tricks up your sleeve.
That's a hard one because I really love what I'm doing right now, but of course, as my life evolves and as my passions emerge in different things, if I was to guess, which is guessing because I'm not actually doing this right now, an educated guess towards something that I think I could pursue because of my love of reading, potentially writing. And it might not be writing what someone may think immediately. Like, I don't think that I would write necessarily a book. I think I would do more script writing. And that script writing is because of my love of content creation and that vision of having other people involved in the creation. So it very much starts as a script and then it evolves into an entire piece of content with lots of different people's collaborations and input. And I love that process. So I think that potentially down the line, when I have more years on me that I could really like dive into and tap into, that would be cool to do.
Every other day I meet someone who wants to be a filmmaker or a scriptwriter. And I think that's great that you're seeing that as a path for you because we do need original stories. I'm sure you're tired of seeing all the remakes we have. And, we need people who are going to come with original stories. And I honestly think that writing is great for people who have a lot of ideas. So I'm like you. And because I have so many ideas, sometimes I'm like, okay, this doesn't have to be a business. This can be a book. We throw around different ways of getting our message out there, but it's like at the core of what you've been speaking about this entire time, which is messaging, loving to put a message out there. And I'm sure that when you're ready, Hollywood, wherever you see yourself going, will receive you with open arms because you are someone who knows how to take a message and translate it for impact. Whether for a business, a brand, a mission, a cause. And I think that that's such a needed skill set, especially because a lot of television and movies, I got to keep it real now, are lacking depth. They're lacking that X factor. They're lacking that what's the broader purpose and broader mission. And because I'm a Gen Zer and I know Gen Z has like the highest purchasing power right now, and we are deeply into social issues. We're deeply into like, hey, like the thing behind the thing. Like, what are the factors, historical, psychological, sociological, that impact our experience? So anyone that can write stories and shows and movies that speak to that will be successful. So I'm definitely rooting for you in that next phase. And yes, I'm also a writer. So I understand wanting to translate ideas into experiences in terms of the written word. And you're also a great speaker. So I know, like, when your pen is ready, I know it's going to be a success. All right. So I want to shift to our last couple questions, maybe one or two, about the culture. So I know you're passionate about gender equality in the workplace. And we started this episode talking about powerful women like Beyonce and Taylor Swift and how they're able to basically, rally other women for this cause of empowering women overall. I want to know, like, what do you do at In Creative Co. to further gender equality in branding and advertising and marketing and sustainability in the spaces that you're in?
This is a great question that it's an honor to answer. So, one, I love putting the creators at the forefront. I think that it's very important for creators to get the credit, be applauded, and show that they are appreciated through the work that they did. So I love creating, but I also love that the creators who help me on projects can also be given those accolades. And so that's showing by doing. And I I love putting their face out there just as much as my own. Honestly, a lot of the time I put their face out there more than myself. And you can see that front and center on our social media pages, especially the Instagram. I like that to be a place for them to showcase themselves because the hardest part about being a creative and being a creator in general is having places to showcase your work and have it be brought to new audiences, because that's really when you're going to find the biggest reward.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Drea. I'm not going to keep you for any much longer. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. This is the Purposeful Professional, and we are out.
Hey y'all, I know you enjoyed that episode just as much as I did. Drea's story is amazing, motivating, and a testament to the power of creativity to transform your own life and to set you on the path to become an excellent marketer. She's an inspiration to an entrepreneur like myself who has big dreams and wants to make an impact in sustainable and inclusive spaces. Drea dropped some gems for the Purposeful Professional and all of us, and we are all grateful. This episode had some key moments. If you're an entrepreneur, marketer, or even someone looking to unlock your creativity for the betterment of our society or even your own life, this episode is for you. I need you to replay it, write notes, let these gems soak in, and allow us to help you move towards your greatest and most purposefully professional excellence. Until next time, everyone, this is Soraya, and I'm the host of The Purposeful Professional. Bye.